Hi, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. I hope that you enjoyed your Juneteenth weekend. Um, for some of us, it wasn't as great a weekend. That little housekeeping too. There are three things that are really on my mind that I want to get to you today. If you can read this, I'm sorry that it's backwards for you, but this is a pamphlet that ABC is having a COVID-19 vaccine pop up clinic tomorrow between the hours of 12 noon and 7 p.m. at the Head Start Center on Clifford Avenue. And you can walk in or you can make an appointment. These emails went out to everyone. If you didn't get the email, please let me know. Everyone who is 12 and older is eligible for the vaccine, and they are giving Pfizer and Johnson and Johnson. As you know, with the Johnson and Johnson, one shot is needed. You don't need a follow-up. With Pfizer, you would need a follow-up in 3 weeks. And there is information to call Chris Bell at 325-5116 or C Bell at abcinfo.org. Um, Patrick Keneally, Keisha Lopez, and I, as educators, are all going to be participating tomorrow. Why this is particularly important right now, talking about the COVID vaccine pop up for anyone who's just dropped in. We are having a pop up vaccine clinic tomorrow at the Clifford Avenue ABC location between the hours of 12 noon and 7 p.m. And why this is so important right now is there is a new strain of the COVID-19 virus, which originated in India, and it's now in our country. They are thinking that that will become the number one strain of the virus. And what is particularly important about this Delta strain is that it's more infectious. You can pick it up easily. It gives a more prolonged illness. You'll be sicker longer and more ill more ill than you would with the other strains. So the people who are most at risk for contracting the Delta strain of the COVID-19 virus are those who have not been vaccinated. We're talking about children 12 and under, and we're talking to you adults who have never been vaccinated. You are most at risk for contracting this very serious, concerning strain of the COVID virus. Again, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, we are underrepresented. In Rochester, we have vaccinated at lower rates than anywhere else in New York State. And we are disproportionately more likely to contract the COVID virus and to die from the COVID virus and have already done so. Again, in Maryland, where I originally lived, I know of whole entire families who have succumbed to this virus. So I am telling you, I'm pleading with you folks, bring your kids who are 12 and up, get this shot tomorrow. You can walk in, you don't need an appointment. And if you get the Johnson and Johnson, you're one and done. So that's what I have. So piggybacking on Juneteenth, which, as you know, June 19th, 1865, 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, the information came to Galveston, Texas, by a federal official. However, many slaves were not officially freed until the 14th Amendment. So while it's a day of celebration, it was also a day to remember that within this country we had this legacy of being enslaved peoples. And so what we're going to look at today in our lesson, I'm going to share the screen with you. And it's very important that we talk about this gentleman here because you most likely will see this on your task test. So this was Abraham Lincoln, as most of you know. And he gained notoriety as president for the Emancipation Proclamation, but also his Gettysburg Address. And so we're looking at and reading, again, how to analyze seminal U.S. documents or documents that have been made very important in history, and how we look at the themes and concepts. And if you would notice, a lot of these themes and concepts are going back to some of the principles that we want to protect within the Constitution. So we want to look at the Gettysburg Address. Going to start a worksheet with you, but for deeper understanding, please look at this YouTube video on your own. It is 11 minutes long. Watch the video, watch the video, watch the video. This woman very succinctly breaks it down to the essence of what he is talking about, and word for word. So some of these concepts and ideas may not be familiar to us, but if you watch this video, I think you will have greater understanding. Something else that I wanted to point out to you is that we're going to define one word for you. The other words, I think that you can get through context, through reading the information that surrounds the word, but this is a word we don't really use in common language, and it wasn't even widely used then. So he introduces his speech with fourscore, right? In 20 years, fourscore and 7 years ago. So a score is 20 years. So that's important to know. So let's take a look first at this worksheet for the Gettysburg Address. And then again, for deeper understanding, it is important that you watch that video. So let's take a look here. See if I can make this boy a little bigger for you. I like that. So on Melody, you messed it up. So little back information on this speech was delivered in 1863, 87 years after 1776. After the establishment of this country was broken in civil war. Keep in mind that in 1776, there were already enslaved Africans and probably some indigenous people as well. So this country was broken because of the concept of owning humans. So after the Civil War, November 19th, 1863, well, actually in the midst of the Civil War did not end until 1865, correct? Lincoln delivered his most famous speech known as the Gettysburg Address. He was in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, attending the dedication for a cemetery of soldiers who died at the Battle of Gettysburg. And some people thought, well, hey, you're making this speech here. You're trying to score political points. You don't care about these soldiers. But he was trying to say that everything that was tied to the death of the soldiers to try to hold on to this brand new nation. Keep in mind, 87 years after the establishment of this country, it was very, very new. When you look at countries in Europe and Asia and Africa, nations and civilizations that were thousands of years old, this country was a baby, and it had already fractured. So there are some words here that are underlined. Read this. We're going to read this carefully and pay close attention to the underlined words. And it's only 200 some words, but these 200 and some words were remembered forever as being so important. Fourscore, as I already told you, a score is 20 years. So fourscore and 7 years ago, 20 times 4, 80 plus 7, 87 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we're engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met here on a great battlefield of that war. We are now have come to dedicate a portion of it as a final resting place for those who gave their lives that that nation might live. So it is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but we can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they have thus far so nobly carried on. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation shall have a new birth of freedom, and that this government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. So rather, he was saying that to best honor the dead, we can do this work. We must finish this work, right? So now let's look at these few questions here. I'm going to see if I can go to Google Docs. All I want to do is look at the questions. It may push the rest of it out of format. Oh, very good. Okay, very nice. We're not going to circle the word that most clearly matches the word from the passage. We are instead going to highlight the word, okay? So I'm just going to make that instruction more plain. So a score, as we talked about, was how many years? So the answer would be A, battles, B, wars, C, 20, or D, 100. A score is what? Remember it? 20. So we're going to just highlight that. So when we say fourth, we go back to fourth. What does that mean? Settlers, land, after, or forward. If we want to go forth, we're what? Moving forward. We're moving forward. Stay with that orange. So when something has been conceived, is that a word we've heard in another context? Conceived? So what would it be? A, created, B, won, C, proud, or D, possible? When we talk about, I'll tell you something that I can't tell you exactly when I was conceived, but I was born on April 20th, 1963. So created, right? Conception, created. We've heard that word before. All right. A proposition. Think about how you've heard this word outside of this setting as well. Is it a constitution? Is it an invitation? Is it an idea? Or is it people? I got a proposition for you. How about you and I get together and form a business of our own? What is a proposition? You want to hear what my proposition is? It is a what? It's an idea. So how we can get meaning of words that are not often used by us is to think about how we've heard them before and also look at how they've been used in this passage, and what that's called is context. Context. Endure. The word endure. Have you heard the word endure before? When would you have heard the word endure? Are we talking about A, away, B, survive, C, discuss, or D, fight? When we say we must endure, though sometimes the days are long and things feel rough, but we will what? We will endure. We will survive. Okay. Oop, I did that wrong, didn't I? Wasn't trying to highlight that word. Here we go. And I erased it completely. There we go. And so next, if something is fitting, well, if it's fitting, are we talking about sizing? Is it appropriate? Is it joining, or is it sad? If we say that this was a fitting speech for this occasion, then we're saying that it's right. It is appropriate. It is appropriate. Okay. And the last four, consecrate, hallow, note, and perish, you're going to have to go back in, and here they are. I'm going to highlight them for you so that I'm going to highlight them. Hallow, oh, wait a minute. Consecrate, hallow. Yep, highlight those words. And then I want you, note and perish, note. It's underlined, but I'm highlighting it to make it easier. And then perish, right there. Here you go. Complete those last four. And then what I'd like for you to do is to look at that video. That video is important, again, to give us real understanding, word for word, about what this speech was about. She did such a good job that I think it's important for you to look at that. So that is all we have. That's all the live lessons we have for today. We'll see you tomorrow for math, writing, and science. Everyone be well and take care.